This movie is the next step in the ongoing process of creating an animation in Cinema 4D and rendering it out using multipass rendering for compositing in After Effects. What we're going to be doing in this movie is importing our elements into After Effects. Now, the files that are in this folder are only here because we completed the previous exercises from the previous movies in this chapter. If you have not done those exercises, then this folder will be empty, and you'll need to go back and complete those exercises in order to follow along in this movie. Now that we've got our files in the render folder, you can see that the very last thing Cinema 4D was it wrote this AEC file. And this AEC file needs to get imported into After Effects. But before I can do that, I need to verify whether or not I have the After Effects import plugin. Now, that's a free plugin that Maxon created to allow After Effects to import this special project file. So the way you verify if you have it or not is to go to the Applications folder, and then to the After Effects folder, and then go to Plugins. Now, I've got it here already installed, and that's what it looks like, and it's just loose in the Plugins folder. So if you don't have it there, then there's two places you can get it. You can get it from the actual application folder in the Maxon folder that's on your hard drive, or you can download it from their website. Now, I prefer to download it from the website because I know for sure that I'm getting the very latest version of that plugin file. So if I go navigate over to Safari, I already have the Maxon web page loaded. I can go to Downloads and then to Updates and click on Updates and go to Plugins. And now because I'm using After Effects CS5, I'm going to go ahead and take the CS5 plugin. So even though, don't worry that it says 11.5, it'll work for 12 just fine. So I'm going to go to Download, and it's going to download that file. And then once it's done, I'm going to unzip it and place it into the After Effects plugin folder. So let's hide Safari here. And since I already have that file installed here, I'm not going to bother going through that process. But if you don't have that plugin installed, you'll need to do that step, or you won't be able to follow along the rest of the movie. So now let's go over to After Effects and go to the File, Import menu, and import a file. I'm going to navigate to my desktop, to my exercise files, to Chapter 11, and go to the Renders folder, to the 3D subfolder, and I'll navigate to the very bottom and grab that AEC file. So when I select that and hit Open, it's going to think about it for a moment, and then it's going to import the files, and it's arranged them into folders. And so I have a Special Passes folder, and that contains the object buffer and the RGBA pass that I selected earlier. And then it's also got all of my other passes, plus an actual comp. And if I open up the comp, there is my camera, and that's the same camera from Cinema 4D, and then the lights from Cinema 4D, as well as the position information for those 2D objects that we'd set external compositing tags on. So there's the VS position, and there's the 2.5D position. So if I scrub through my animation, you can see there's my image, and here's the null objects moving in exactly the same way that the 2D type elements were in Cinema 4D. Now, you may have noticed that the rendering here in After Effects looks a lot darker than it does in Cinema 4D. And there's a very important reason for that. New to version 12 is something called linear workflow. And linear workflow makes the blending modes in After Effects work a little bit differently than they did before when you're working with files rendered from Cinema 4D. And that's because of the color information stored in those files. So what I need to do is, in After Effects, activate linear workflow. And that's a step that I can follow in the project settings. So I'm going to go to the File menu, and at the very bottom, I'm going to go to Project Settings. And in the Project Settings window, I'm going to go to the depth, and I'm going to change the depth to 16-bit per channel. And then I'm going to change the working space to sRGB. And that sRGB workspace matches the workspace in Cinema 4D. And that's going to change how After Effects interprets those layers. The last thing I need to do here is linearize the working space. And that's very important. So once again, just to reiterate, I'd change the depth to 16-bit, change the working space to sRGB, linearize the working space, and then hit OK. There we go. And you can see now that I've done that, now my rendering here in After Effects looks just like it did in Cinema 4D. So don't forget, that's brand new with version 12. So if you're working in 12, and hopefully you are, you have to do that every single time you come into After Effects. Getting the files imported and organized is an important step that C4D makes a breeze with its amazing integration with After Effects.